Hello guys, myself Manoj Sharma. Welcome to TechnoSage. So in this video, let's talk about the time and date calculation in Excel. So whenever you type a date into Excel, you may never see an underlying serial number. So a serial number, when I talk about the serial number, there is a number associated with every time and every date in Excel. And that date starts from 1st January 1900. So Excel uses a numbering system with dates beginning with 1 January 1900 as the serial date number of 1, and then the numbering will continue until today. So let's see what the serial number and how the serial number you can see for your date. So let's just see the serial number for 1st January 1900. So this is 1st January 1900, and copy this cell onto the next cell. Just do paste values. So what paste values will do, it will paste just the values of that particular date, which is basically the date values and not the exact content of that cell. So as you can see that the value of this particular cell or this particular date is 1. So similarly, if I write today, it will give me the date for today, and I'll copy this cell, and here I'll do the paste values. This will give me the value or the underlying serial number for that particular day. So you can compare that on 1st January 1900 the value was 1, and today, as of today, the value is 44,814. So you can say that these many days have elapsed since the 1st January 1900. So this is basically the date calculation as far as the Excel is concerned. So when we do certain operations with Excel, this comes very handy. We will see that in this particular example set where we will do certain calculations with respect to dates. We'll do the addition of the dates, we'll do subtraction of the date. So this is only possible because of the underlying serial number that we have. Before we jump on to it, let's see there are certain shortcuts, first being control and colon, that will insert the date. So if I do control colon, so you can see it will just paste the date for today. Next is command colon, it will insert the time. So command colon, and it is inserting the time, which is the current time. Now equals now. So this formula will give you the today's date as well as the today's time, or the current time, or the current date. So next is today. If I give this function today, so this function will give me the today's date, the latest today's date. So this was all about the date. Next thing is time. So every date has an associated time also. In Excel, for time, we have a fraction value, and that starts with 12 a.m. So the day starts with 12 a.m. So 12 a.m. will be treated as 0, and then the calculation goes on. So let's suppose when you are trying to calculate the 6 p.m. value, the Excel will show up the underlying value as 0.75. So let's see how. So I'll do command colon, this will give me the today's or the current time, and I'll copy this time onto the next cell. I'll do the paste values. So as you can see, it is giving me the value in fraction as 0.8548611. So this is fraction, and if I edit this and will do 6 p.m. as what we have talked about, that 6 p.m. will be 0.75. So I'll copy this, and again here I'll do the paste values. So as you can see, it's 0.5, and since the date is being calculated from 12 a.m., so this value should be 0. I'll leave this, and see this value is 0. So for time, the underlying value is fraction, but Excel interprets this as a time serial number and format the cell accordingly. So you can calculate this fraction for any time during the day by taking the total number of seconds that have passed from the midnight, as I talked about, it was 12 a.m., until your time value, and dividing it by 86,400 seconds in a day. So in a whole day, you have 86,400 seconds. From the midnight, you have to take till your time and divided it by 86,400 seconds, and you will get your own fraction. So this is basically the time, the underlying serial number for time. So now the question comes, why this serial number is very much important for date and time calculations. So it is important because you can't sum up two dates. So when you have a serial number associated or an integer value associated with a date, you can do the calculations quite easily. So let's see with this example. Now let's suppose this is the invoice we have, and this is the invoice date, the date on which the invoice was created, and this is the invoice due date. So we have calculated that the invoice due date should be 30 days. So the 30 days is the marking of the invoice due date. And now what we need to do, we need to calculate the invoice due date first. So here is the field called current date. So as we know that the current date would be the function today. If I enter, it will just give me the current date. And now the invoice due date, since we know that 30 days was the marking time, so the invoice due date would be the invoice date plus 30 days, right? So just select the cell, equals, select the date, and plus 30 days. So now since we are adding a date with an integer, obviously this is an invalid operation, right? But since A9, that is the date, has the underlying serial number, so it is easy to do these kind of calculations. So here the date would be having an underlying serial number, and we are adding up an integer value with another integer value, which will again be giving up a date 30 days ahead of that particular selected date. Hit enter and you will see, or you can validate easily that 30 days we have added to that particular invoice date. And now drag to apply the formula to all other cells. So here the invoice age, we need to calculate the invoice age. So how the invoice age is calculated? The invoice age is calculated with the current date. So the current date minus the invoice date will give you the invoice age. We'll write equals, we'll select this date minus, and we'll select the invoice date. So again you can see that since there are two date formats, with two date formats you can't do subtraction or addition, right? But since they have an underlying serial number, you can still do that same. Hit enter and you will see that 8 days is the invoice age for that particular date. Now drag the cell to apply the formula to all other cells, but now what you see that the formula that you have applied is wrong here. The values are coming wrong. Why? Because you are not treating this current date as the static one or the absolute cell reference. So all we need to do is, since this B6 or the current date is fixed, so we'll apply the concept of absolute cell reference. I have created a video on absolute cell references. I'll paste that in the comment section. Do check that video out and you will easily understand that what is basically the concept of absolute cell reference and why it is very much important over here. Hit enter and now you drag down, and this time you will see that the calculation is fine. So now next is the number of days invoice has passed the deadline. So the calculation would be the invoice age minus 30 days. Hit enter and then scroll down and you will see that the minus sign indicates that there are still 22 days or 19 days left for this invoice due date to come, and 42 means that 12 days has already passed the invoice deadline. So these two values or these two invoice need action since they have already passed the due date, and minus sign means that due date is yet to come. So there is a clear-cut example of why the underlying serial number is important for time and date calculations in Excel, and how you can leverage the time and date calculations as part of your invoice or other fields. I hope you understood the concept of time and data calculations. If you have any questions or concerns, please do let me know in the comment section. Please like, share and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much for watching.